In the mid-2020s, a strange shift rippled through the entertainment world. Not a scandal, not a comeback tour. Something quieter and far more unsettling. A moment when the carefully scripted mythology of celebrity simply stopped working. The red carpets, the blockbuster deals, the familiar press cycles. Suddenly they felt like artifacts from another era. And at the center of this disruption stood one of the most recognizable faces in modern cinema, Johnny Depp. But this wasn't a return to the spotlight. Instead, the cinematic scripts were slowly burned away, replaced by dissonant chords, raw studio recordings, and underground collaborations that felt intentionally inaccessible. This wasn't just a musical experiment. It was the final, deliberate transformation of a global icon into something stranger, a ghost inside the machine. And to understand why it happened, we have to rewind to the moment the Hollywood system itself began to crack. By the time the mid-2020s arrived, the Hollywood blockbuster machine had entered a strange phase of repetition. Endless sequels, reboots of reboots, familiar characters recycled through increasingly expensive productions. For decades, stars like Johnny Depp had thrived inside that system. From the unpredictable chaos of Captain Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, to the gothic eccentricity of Edward Scissorhands in Edward Scissorhands, his career was built on characters that felt strange, theatrical, and deeply personal. But by the 2020s, the role of the traditional leading man had started to feel less like an artistic challenge, and more like a carefully managed product. Every appearance had a marketing plan. Every interview had a narrative. And during the final wave of mainstream press tours, something unusual became visible. The distance between the public expectation of a triumphant Hollywood comeback and the private artistic direction of the actor himself. Journalists were waiting for a redemption arc. Studios were waiting for the next franchise. But quietly, that script was already being rejected. And the industry didn't fully realize it until something unexpected appeared in the underground music scene. When the first experimental recordings began circulating, they sounded nothing like the polished celebrity music projects audiences were used to. There were no glossy melodies, no radio-friendly structures. Instead, the sound was raw, analog distortion, fragmented rhythms, dissonant textures that felt closer to experimental sound art than conventional rock. It was a sharp departure from the more accessible collaborations audiences had previously seen in projects like Hollywood Vampires. These new recordings followed no obvious formula. Songs dissolved halfway through. Structures collapsed into chaotic noise. And that chaos served a very specific purpose. It acted as a filter. A sonic barrier designed to push away casual listeners who were only interested in celebrity spectacle. Instead, the work seemed aimed at a completely different audience. One that valued experimentation over familiarity. Behind the scenes, avant-garde sound engineers and underground producers were shaping the recordings. Their goal wasn't accessibility. It was discomfort. And that discomfort became the foundation of a completely new artistic identity. At first glance, it looked like a side project. A famous actor exploring music between film roles. But the deeper the recordings went, the clearer the pattern became. This wasn't a hobby. It was a dismantling. For decades, the global image of Johnny Depp had been constructed by massive studio systems. Film sets involving hundreds of crew members. Scripts rewritten by committees. Budgets stretching into the hundreds of millions. In contrast, the underground studio environment was almost microscopic. Just microphones, analog equipment, and raw vocal takes recorded without the safety net of cinematic characters. In a film, an actor can hide behind costumes, accents, and elaborate production design. But in a stripped-down studio recording, there's nowhere to hide. Every crack in the voice remains. Every mistake becomes part of the performance. And that vulnerability turned out to be the point. The transition wasn't about abandoning cinema. It was about reclaiming control over the creative process itself. The ripple effects of that shift were immediate. Independent labels that had spent decades operating on the margins suddenly found themselves connected to a global cultural figure. And that connection changed how the experimental music scene was perceived. At first, many critics dismissed the move as a celebrity vanity project. A famous actor dabbling in niche music. But as more recordings appeared, the tone of the reviews began to shift. Music journalists started analyzing the technical aspects of the production. The unusual layering of analog distortion. The deliberate rejection of traditional song structures. What initially looked like chaos began to resemble a carefully designed soundscape. Live performances pushed the concept even further. Instead of massive arenas or traditional concert stages, shows appeared in unconventional spaces, industrial warehouses, art galleries, small experimental venues where the sound itself became the centerpiece. Sometimes the performer wasn't even the visual focus. The music was. And in that environment, celebrity stopped being the main attraction. For most Hollywood stars, the final phase of a career follows a predictable pattern. A few nostalgic roles, some legacy sequels, occasional public appearances celebrating past success. But the transformation of Johnny Depp suggested a completely different blueprint. Instead of protecting a polished legacy, the decision seemed to embrace uncertainty, to trade global visibility for artistic freedom. And in doing so, it offered something unexpected to other veteran creators facing the same creative exhaustion. A reminder that reinvention doesn't always mean chasing relevance. Sometimes it means disappearing from the spotlight entirely and building something new in the shadows. The long-term impact of that decision is still unfolding. But one image may ultimately define this chapter. Not the blockbuster star, not the red carpet icon, but an artist alone in a studio, surrounded by analog noise and distorted sound waves, finally listening to the chaos he once spent a career performing above.